Congratulations to the Detroit Lions, who just won their first playoff game since 1992. The NFL landscape is marked by perennial changes. No two teams go through the same rebuilding process, but all teams are in the pursuit of success. Today, I wanted to compare and contrast the approach of both of these franchises took and reevaluate whether or not the Bears are following the same path. The rebuilds of both of these clubs feature a ton of similarity, from the coaching overhauls to roster construction, draft strategies, and even the quarterback dilemma. The biggest difference is the Lions are 1 year ahead of the Bears on the rebuild, and their signal caller is already on a big-time contract. Both of these franchises chose to overhaul the coaching staff and focus on shifting the culture in the locker room. Dan Campbell and Matt Eberflus have similar coaching styles, personalities aside. The biggest difference in their coaching seems to be aggression. Dan Campbell is the biggest risk taker in the NFL and never shies away from a fourth down, whereas Matt Eberflus seems almost ultra conservative by nature. Both coaches have had to change their offensive coordinators early on in the rebuild. The Lions promoted Ben Johnson from within. He's been a huge success and turned down head coaching offers last year. After the Lions' playoff win, most expect Ben Johnson will land a head coaching job in the upcoming weeks. The Lions will have to replace one of the best young play callers in the league. Meanwhile, the Bears are currently trying to find their own version of Ben Johnson. Ryan Poles is currently leading an extensive search, but it's incredibly important that he nails this hire. A miss could set the Bears back. Both coaches also shifted the culture inside the locker rooms with the goal of establishing a winning mentality. Both the Lions and the Bears GMs placed a heavy emphasis on building through the NFL draft. Both teams now have two of the youngest rosters in the league, with the Packers also being one of the youngest in the league. The NFC North looks like one of the toughest divisions in the NFL, but that's another story. Both of these franchises also had a dilemma at quarterback. Jared Goff was widely considered a bust by most fans and analysts, and the Lions had to decide whether to move on or rebuild his confidence. They stuck with their quarterback, and Goff has rewarded them for their decision. The Bears face a similar decision with Justin Fields coming up, but are in an even more unique opportunity by having the number one pick in back-to-back drafts. Ryan Poles has a huge opportunity to continue improving this roster by building through the draft. Both teams have the same goal, which is long-term sustained success in the NFL. When you step back and look at the two rebuilds side by side, it's hard not to see the similarities. Both coaches won 3 games in their first season of the rebuild, and then both coaches went on to finish year 2 hot down the stretch. The biggest difference was the final game of the season. The Lions managed to beat the Packers and knock them out of the playoffs last year, but the Bears would lose that game and let the Packers in this year. Both teams then headed into the offseason with 2 first-round picks. The Lions took Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell. The Bears have the number 1 overall pick and 2 top 10 picks, so our draft class should make an even bigger impact. Also, both coaches did have to change their offensive coordinators. I mentioned that, but the biggest difference here is that the Lions found their answer in-house, while the Bears are searching for outside candidates. But like the Lions, keeping a similar scheme and system, which allows for continuity. I know some people want to deny it, but it's very clear that these two teams are both rebuilding in a similar fashion. Now, everything isn't exactly the same, but when it comes to the NFL, this is about as good of an example as you will get. No two teams are ever built exactly the same way, but the similarities here are endless. Both franchises seem to be on the upswing with young, ascending rosters. Both seem to have smart GMs and tough, feisty coaches. To me, I think Ryan Poles could be a better GM than Brad Holmes, but so far it looks pretty clear that Dan Campbell's the better head coach than Matt Eberflus, but the jury is still out on Flus. Both of these teams are heading in the right direction, though, and there should be a ton of battles in the years to come. Last night was huge for the Detroit Lions, though, as they won their first playoff game since 1992. I want to honestly give my congratulations to that fan base. I really mean it. Going 32 years without a playoff win has to be tough, and as Bears fans, we know what it's like to lose, and no fan base deserves to go 32 years without a playoff win. That just has to be rough, but I do have a funny tidbit here. If you are friends with a Lions fan, text them congratulations about their win. It's even more special for them because the last time they won a playoff game, text messaging had not been invented yet. So it's the first time in all Lions fans' lives that they can receive congratulations texts about a playoff win. Congratulations to the Detroit Lions and your fan base, but I'm rooting for the Lions and Packers to lose next week. In other news, Ian Cunningham did interview with the Chargers for their GM job. We should find out sometime this week if he lands that job. If he does, it will net us those 2 third-round picks. The Bears did complete all 4 of their interviews for offensive coordinators. I expect more names to be announced, but so far it's just those 4 candidates. And then one final note, kind of a sad bit of news here. The Bears moved on from Cliff Stein. Cliff Stein worked behind the scenes for the Bears doing a ton of things. He was a highly regarded executive who spent 22 years with the Chicago Bears. He was their senior vice president and a guy who was known for his specialty when it comes to contract negotiations. Just sad to see Cliff Stein go. I have no idea what went on there, but just wanted to mention that as well. Stay tuned, guys. I have so much more coming. Please hit that like button for me, and until next time, bear down.